So analytics are available through the Perform and Engage 365 Teams application. You can access these from the My Team tab. And when you get in there, based on your access, whether you're a head of department or whether you have HR access or different access within the platform, you'll see different options. So here, I'm a head of department, so I have a department dashboard, but I also have organizational analytic access. So therefore, I can see all the organizational data here. Exactly what I see here, I can see under the department dashboard as well. It's just for a different level within the organization. Even here, I can select to change the filters, so I could select individual departments if I wanted to within the screen. Now the screen itself is split into a number of different panels, so we can see we've got check-ins, and this is giving me the check-in rate. If I click view details, it will give me more detailed information about the trend of check-in rates and manager interaction with the platform. Sentiment analysis, Tempulse engagement score, which is a distinct measure of engagement across your organization. Down here we've got check-in rates, which give you a more overall view, and then we can also view the responses to questions. So for example, if we want to reflect on what people have achieved this week or their blockers, you're able to go in and look at the full report for the organization or for the area that organization you're looking at. 9-box grid or any other organization level data sets are also available optionally underneath the grid itself. So let's take a look at some of this data now. So first off, let's have a look at what the check-in information looks like. So if we actually go in and have a look and click view details, you'll get the data. And in this case, I'm just going to filter the data so that we can see it over a specific period of time. And this is showing me the check-in rate per due date. So for every due date we had for check-ins, it will show me that check-in rate. So here we can see the check-ins that were submitted and the number which were unsubmitted. And we can see that either absolute or we can see that as a percentage across the organization as well. So there's different ways of viewing this data. Here's my percentage view, and we can do it by bar chart or line chart, depending on how you want to look at that. You also have the ability to look at submitted versus reviewed. So submitted is how many employees have submitted their check-ins, and reviewed is what percentage of managers have reviewed submitted check-ins. And that's a very important metric because it's a key lead metric as to the engagement levels of team members within that team. Okay, so that is the check-in data. Sentiment is where we use machine learning to understand how positive or negative the conversations within the check-ins are over time. So if we look at the sentiment data, again, depending on the time period we want to look at, we can then analyze the level of engagement based on the sentiment itself. So in this case, we've got our monthly breakdown for sentiment. We can see that there was a dip around the middle of the year, and then it rose slightly towards the end. We can also change this to be a weekly view, a monthly view, or a quarterly view. Often with these metrics, you'll want to take a slightly longer term view to look at patterns. So monthly or quarterly is typically an optimum time period to do that. And we can also go in and change the grouping. So depending on how we want to view this data, we could view this by different categories or person properties, or in this case, we'll just choose simply department. And now we can see the pattern of change of sentiment, which is quite different across different departments. So able to break that data down into more detail. The format for our reports is standard across all our reporting, whether it's the sentiment and engagement scores or whether it's the check-in ratios. These are all based on the same format. So once you're familiar with one report, you'll be familiar with all of them. Down the bottom, you can see we have access to the tabular data. So here you're able to access the actual data that's showing within the chart, and you can export the data to Excel or to CSV, depending on how you want to view that data in your own systems. The next data set to show is our Tempulse engagement score. Now, our Tempulse engagement score is a measure of engagement across 5 areas of employee engagement. Again, we use AI and machine learning to do this. And again, if we go in and select our dates and make sure we select a good time period to look at a pattern over time, we can see the change in engagement over time. So here we have a lower level of engagement towards the end of the year compared to the beginning of the year. Once again, we can break that down by department or different metrics, but we can also break this down by score component. Score component is the individual engagement scores. So we can see at the top here, discretionary effort and advocacy is very high, but feeling valued is a little bit lower. And a really nice way of viewing our engagement data is using the heat map. So the heat map breaks the data down into a two-dimensional box. So we can see here we have our values along the side here related to engagement and our departments along the bottom. Of course, you can modify the grouping however you wish, but this view gives you the hot and cold areas of engagement across your organization. Once again, it's a great way of viewing that overall trend, and you can filter by the different time periods as well. In addition, we mentioned before that we have our questions within here as well. So if you want to look at achievements over the period, you can go in, look at the responses individually within the system. So you've both got the trend of number of responses per week, then you've also got the individual data within here as well. And once again, you can export that data wherever you wish using our export functions.